Hello beautiful people, my name is Miss Linda, a special needs educator, a child neuropsychology and speech and language pathology. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we will be introducing a speech therapist and we'll be looking at different things that we'll be talking about. So sit down and make sure you learn and grasp as much as you can. This is one of the most requested topic that parents and teachers have asked on how we can come up with more content on speech therapy. And on this video we'll be taking you through a lot of stuff on speech and language. So welcome Mr. Gregory.
My name is Gregory Yegon. I'm a speech therapist. Thank you, Linda. We are going to be talking about communication disorders, and which I can say is a broader area where we need to focus, and as caregivers, teachers and therapists need to know more about it so that we can be able to help our children well. So first, I would want us to know what speech and language is. Speech is the verbal communication, the verbal oral communication.
So we will start by introducing the terms so that we can be on the same page.
It's okay.
Yeah, so you will take us through the introduction, then we'll, as we continue, we'll have interactions in between.
That's okay. So thank you so much. We are going to learn these few terms because these are the terms that we use mostly, and when you are looking for therapy for your children, or when we are doing therapy to our kids, these are the most referred terms. So the first term is speech. Speech is the verbal communication, using oral verbal communication. And then language is hearing and understanding. This one deals with the cognitive aspect of everything.
Sure.
So this is an area whereby most of us interchange. There is the language and there is the speech. So each has got its own disorders, and they all fall under communication disorders.
So we have the speech disorders and we have the language disorders, which all fall into communication. I hope you're learning.
True. Now, under this also, there is a most important part where we always say it's called hearing disorders. Hearing disorders, Linda, is an area whereby it's always connected to speech. You cannot do any speech therapy without doing a hearing test, because it's quite important.
That's why it's necessary when your child has issues with communication, the first step is to check on hearing.
Yeah, true. So hearing is the auditory perception of sound, and this happens in the brain. We all know that. But now, in our case, we need to know that the three interlink: hearing, language, and speech.
Three
interlink. Yeah. Hearing, language, and speech. So with communication, when one area is affected, then there is something wrong. There has to be an issue with speech or language. So first of all, I want us to see, to check on hearing, and then we move to the two. So there are two types of hearing disorders.
Yeah.
These are two. One is conductive hearing loss, and the next one is sensorineural hearing loss. So the first one, the conductive hearing loss, it's due to external factors. Maybe, for example,
conduct due to external factors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Noise, high sound, which affects the hearing, the eardrum, the middle ear. Then definitely there is hearing loss due to that.
Okay.
And then there is the sensorineural hearing loss, still in hearing, where this one comes into place when the middle ear is affected, when there's infection in the middle ear, and then this is what we now call sensorineural.
Okay.
And there is production of fluids in the middle ear which come out. It can be seen on a child. It flows out from the ear.
So that is more of a detail. It's more of a detail, but now putting it in a way that we briefly are saying those are the areas that get affected for us to say when we talk about conduct and sensory neural. So those are the areas that usually get affected.
Yes.
Now, how as a parent or as a teacher, how do we say that for me, for my child, I think this is now a red flag for this condition?
One, there's nothing else that can be done apart from testing, doing a hearing test.
So for you to conclude about speech and say that my child has issue with speech, has issue with language, or issue with communication, you have to test
the
hearing.
Hearing. So focusing first on hearing, you check on the hearing, you do the hearing test.
The hearing test.
So I think if you now connect the way we were saying, hearing, language, and speech, then we can cumulatively say that this is what we are supposed to do.
Okay.
So maybe if I talk about language and speech, and then we can put it together, it will be more understood by all.
Okay.
So the language part, after hearing, we come to the language part.
Okay.
Language, like we defined, is hearing and understanding.
Hearing and understanding. That's language.
That's language.
And there many people confuse speech and language.
Yes.
Like there is no, I don't know the difference.
They're confused. So with language, there are two areas that we need to focus on. There is acquired language disorders, and there is what we call now developmental language disorders.
Okay, acquired, developmental.
So this is an area that we can always note. Acquired, just by the word acquired, comes from when an external injury happens.
That is acquired. The child was not born with it. He or she just acquired as they were growing up. And the developmental? And
then that is with acquired, it can be caused by TBI. TBI is injury, traumatic brain injury. It's a traumatic brain injury. So that causes, and mostly one of the disorders in this category is aphasia. Aphasia is a language disorder. So when we go to developmental language disorder, this is where autism falls into. It is where we talk of the child is born with. It's a cognitive, congenital disorder. The child is born with. So that is where autism falls, and mostly diagnosed after 2 to 3 years. So that is now the area of language. So when we move to the area of speech, speech also is divided into two areas. There is the articulatory and phonological, that's an area, and there is the fluency area. So with articulatory or phonological, we are talking about speech errors. Speech errors, and mostly we can see them in our children between 0 to 2 years. And some of examples of speech errors, for example, when a child is substitution, there is addition, sounds. For example, if a child says nana instead of banana, that is a speech error.
That's speech error.
Speech error, and it's an articulatory disorder, which can be corrected and should be done early enough. So there's for example, there's another one when the child says yayo instead of yellow. That is an articulatory disorder. It's an error. So there are many errors that can be noted in children, especially from 0 to 2 years old.
Or to 3. Sometimes it progresses all the way to 4.
We've not checked. It goes on up to even preteens.
So now, Gregory, since you have put the speech, you have put the language, as in you have laid foundation to those who are watching us about speech. Now they understand where it all comes from. What is communication? Communication is divided into speech, into language, like hearing. You have explained things. At least you have laid a foundation to people who are watching us. So what can we now say? What can we now tell parents who are handle those, and we want now to make it simpler for them, and for them now that those who have kids who they are not sure if their child have speech, because I know parents who are like, I'm not sure if my child have a communication disorder because he is 2 years, he is 3 years, and yet not even communicating a word.
Yes, it is true. The parent has to to do a lot of things, what we call the red flags that you see. But first of all is to know, being aware, the knowledge about your child, the knowledge about speech and language milestones in a child. Like we've now talked about hearing, we've talked about speech, and we've talked about language. But I was just saying, we did the articulatory part. There is the last one we didn't talk about, which is the fluency. The fluency. Okay. Maybe stammering. Yeah. There is a voice disorder. There is what we call dysarthria. Dysarthria is the loosening of the oral muscles of speech, which is characterized by slurred speech. For example, a child or somebody can be talking in a slow way that cannot be understood, like my name is, or it's never understood. That's dysarthria. There's apraxia. There is voice disorders. Apraxia is a motor planning condition, which is neurological. So all these you cannot do blindly speech therapy because each has its own ways and approaches. Yes. Interventional approaches.
Yeah, approaches. So not all now, when it comes to communication, is super broad. It's super broad for sure, that I can say is super broad. And you can't just go blindly and start working. Yeah, you need to diagnose or to test and know specific areas that you are working with. So for parents who have children and they are not sure if the children have issues with communication, what are the red flags that you highlight to parent, and then they can find peace?
Yeah, definitely it's true what you are saying. The parents really need to, first of all, see on something. If a child is not able to recognize the name in between 0 to 2 years, that's a red flag. The child
cannot recognize the name.
Yeah. If there is no word at all in the 16 months, that's 1 year, 4 months, then that is a red flag.
So those who are watching, that's one red flag. Being able to communicate or to
and
a sound, or the word or the name.
Yes. So, and also if the child does not use gestures, these are basics.
Able to use gestures, like pointing,
pulling your hand, and also trying to talk to you in an intelligible speech, whereby that's babbling while pointing on something.
Okay.
So that is the most important part. Also, you should note. Now there is the area that we need also to check when you check on the area of speech. Speech is very different from language.
Okay.
Because speech, the child is only you as a parent, you are interested in the verbal communication. That my child is not speaking, there's nothing that can be done. While the language part, the parent is interested in, is my child understanding on what we are doing in the house, the daily activities, feeding, bathing, what is happening. So that is the most important thing to note. So we note on that because it really can give you a very big signal
that this child might have communication challenge. Being able to understand things that are going around in the environment surrounding them.
In the environment.
Okay.
True. So now there are different ways that we as therapists will always advise parents to do is one, after knowledge, you seek to do assessments so that you can really pinpoint what is the need.
So parents take key on that. You have to do assessment.
Yes.
That's when I had to repeat it so that you can be able to you have to do assessment for you to be able to pinpoint or say, now for me I feel this is where we have an issue. Yeah.
Yes, and with the assessment, it should be done by someone who really knows the different assessment procedures for children with speech and language issues. For example, there are standardized tests that should be done, and it should be done with age-appropriate tools. For example, there is what we call clinical language fundamentals, which is appropriate for young kids from 0 to 3 years. And that is a tool which is A standard tool is a tool that can be used and gives the same results all the time. So if it's done by somebody else, it will give the same results. So standard tools should always be used. So after doing an assessment, the child will be diagnosed in a given category. They may, what we as parents and therapists and teachers, labeling is what we really avoid.
We avoid labeling, that's for sure.
Labeling is not something which anyone wants.
Yeah.
But areas of weaknesses and strengths should always be noted.
Okay.
Yeah. So where the areas that can be improved and the areas that need to be emphasized.
Okay.
Yes.
So now after assessment, you'll be able to pinpoint, then you check out the area that you need to emphasize, you check the strength, and you check the weaknesses.
Yeah.
So that's all we can talk or say today on this video. It's all about communication, speech and language. How speech and language, hearing, come together and give us communication. Communication is broad, not something that you can narrow into something. No, it is a very broad area. But we're just breaking it into we are just breaking it into simple segment and trying to simplify the information or the content as much as we can, so that you sitting at home you can be able to understand. So for this video, it's just communication, how it's related. Speech and language, how it's related to communication disorders. I hope you have learned something. On the next video, we still have Gregory on the next video, and we're able to look at now the interventions measures on the same. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you so very much. Grab someone else, let them listen to this video. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you watch, and make sure you share. Thank you so very much. God bless.